As we know, yesterday, of course, political parties were able to submit their candidates for the local government elections. Originally, the deadline was 5 o'clock, but that was then extended to 9 p.m. And of course, the IEC is scheduled to speak to us on exactly what those candidate nominations are. So we are waiting for them to begin proceedings. All right, we'll get back to that. Pregnant Duduza.
And then accompanying him this afternoon is DCO Shiburi and DCO Mosri. Without much ado, I'm going to allow the Chief Electoral Officer of the Electoral Commission to proceed and update us on developments with regards to elections. CEO, if you may please proceed.
Thank you very much, Kate, and greetings to commissioners and colleagues. First and foremost, we wish to thank political parties and independent candidates for their continued interest in electoral democracy. Such interest tells us that the electoral democratic project is well and alive in our country. It is not lost to the Commission that the unfolding nomination process had to be undertaken against the backdrop of a pernicious pandemic which is threatening our collective existence. The lengths to which parties and candidates have gone to ensure compliance with obviously tight timeframes is remarkable and indicative of agility within our political system. In line with the election timetable, the first stage of the candidate nomination process concluded last night. The deadline for the submissions was at 2100. There is currently work in progress to collate all the nomination information. The preliminary figures indicate the total number of candidates standing at 59,274, including those captured through the online candidate nomination system, as well as manually in the local office of the Commission. 74% of the preliminary candidates were captured through the online system, whereas 26% came through the manual processes. This innovative ICT solution continues to offer us operational efficiencies, whilst at the same time giving political parties and independent candidates greater control of the candidate capturing process. Local offices of the Commission are still currently busy capturing manual submissions that were received by the cut-off time of 2100 yesterday. The plan is to conclude this capturing by the end of business today. The total number of municipal seats being contested in this year's election is 10,285. There are 276 unique political parties that submitted candidates, of which 2 are contesting in all the 257 municipalities across the country. The total number of independent candidates currently captured is 944. In 2016, there were 855 independent candidates. Concurrent with the continuing capturing process, the verification process is also underway. And this verification process is to ensure that candidates who are on the system are compliant with electoral prescripts. As at this morning, the total election deposits paid amount to just over 7 million. Some payments were made late last night through electronic fund transfers, and this may take up to 48 hours to reflect in the bank account of the Commission. We confirm that the online system closed last night at 2100 hours 34. The reason for this was to enable the data transfer from the public website where the online candidate nomination system is hosted into the internal business application. In the interest of sound election management practice, candidates whose details were entered after the deadline of 2100 hours cannot and will not be accepted. But candidates captured before and up to 2100 will be taken as duly submitted. This is facilitated through the date and time stamp, which is a component of our online candidate nomination system. The affected candidates who were captured during the 34 minutes before the online system actually closed are 74. On Friday, the 27th of August, the Chief Electoral Officer will notify political parties of any non-compliance that may have arisen. In this regard, contestants will have until Monday, the 30th of August, to correct the non-compliance. Furthermore, on the 31st of August, parties will be notified of candidates who may be appearing on multiple party lists. Parties may choose to remove such candidates and reorder the lists by the 2nd of September. The final list of candidates will be certified and published on 7th September 2021. This date will mark the conclusion point of the candidate nomination process, and the ballot paper production process will then be able to commence. Certified candidates will be issued with certificates on the 13th of September. Lastly, we experienced protest here at Election House by members of a political party yesterday. We wish to indicate that the Commission is not entrusted responsibility to mediate internal party disputes. Parties are urged to set up processes to manage internal disputes. The Commission thus condemns protest action directed at it in circumstances where it has no lawful role to play in the internecine party conflict. We thank you.
CEO, thank you very much. I'm going to open the floor for questions. After we open the floor, we'll check with Charlene if there are any questions from our virtual journalists that have joined us virtually. Let me do so. Let's start with Mbali.
You say that the system closed at 21 hours, 34 minutes. What contributed to that problem? Why did it only close at 9:30 last night when one expected to close at 9 o'clock? These 74 candidates who have been affected by this, can you disclose who are they or which parties they are from?
Thanks, Nikki. It's Natasha Pugh here from SABC News. I think I'm covered with the political party that was protesting outside. But I mean, just as a follow-up on that, what interactions did you have with the same political party? I know the ANC's DSG also addressed the matter, but were there any engagements between you and the ANC about the protest outside? As a follow-up to Mbadi's question as to the extension from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., there are certain political parties that have cast aspersions that because a certain political party was scrambling to get their candidates or their nominations in time, the IEC then extended the time. So I think mine is just to ask, were there consultations with political parties before the extension of 9 p.m.? You've seen tweets from leaders like Julius Malema saying that the system or the IEC actually manipulated the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. CEO, you may respond to the questions.
Okay. The Y2134, you see, the system, the online application system, candidate nomination system, is hosted on the website. Now, when you close, it means the data that is in the process of transfer from the public website into the candidate nomination system, which is an internal system, it will block that data transfer, even when it may have been submitted on time. So in that period, the idea was to allow for that data transfer to be complete, and once completed, then to log. But as we indicated, the legal position is that only candidates which were captured by 2100 hours will be taken as duly submitted. And any other candidates who were captured after 2100 hours will not be accepted, and there's 74 of them. There are 4 parties affected by that phenomenon. I don't have their names, but it's 4 political parties that were affected by that number of 74. Yes, indeed, when people came to protest and they indicated that it's about the ANC's internal candidate selection procedures, we got in touch with the PLC representatives of the ANC to say this is really unacceptable. The IEC is not mandated to deal with internal party matters, and we're calling on the ANC to resolve its own internal party issues. And that's the basis on which engagement with the IEC was handled. The extension to 2100 yesterday, last week, a few leaders of political parties approached me to say that they had already indicated at the meeting of the National Party Liaison Committee on the 2nd that the election timetable is tight and that they were not going to be able to comfortably complete the candidate selection process. So they requested that I bring to the attention of the Commission the necessity to extend the period for the submission of candidate nomination. And the Commission had a consultation process to look at that, but could not accede to extending by a few days. They could only accommodate parties by extending with 4 hours. Now, and the 4 hours was to the benefit of all parties, not just the one party as has been postulated. That's not the point. The point is the 4 hours was granted to all parties and not directed at any one party. Was the consultation not formal in terms of a PLC process, but certainly at least 3 leaders of parties had made contact with me about the possibility of extension.
Thank you very much, Charlene and Tumi. If you don't have questions on the
I have them here.
virtual, okay, you've got one.
Okay, I have
you, sir.
2 questions from our online journalists. First question is, which are the 2 parties that are contesting all municipalities? The second question, if your Concord ruling is not successful, will you be able to work and deliver the election under the current strenuous deadlines?
Thank you so much, Tisio. We appreciate. Any other questions? Let me take Mbadi and Natasha, and then we'll see if there are any other more questions. Thank you very much.
My question is talking about this extension once more from yesterday, the deadline deadline being pushed from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Even though you tried to be parties halfway and extended by 4 hours, were there parties who still asked for a further extension, maybe for like an extra day, to have their party list compiled? Because we know that a lot of them were saying that they were under pressure, especially because of this issue around the Concord issue. Are you also able to share if there were parties, which parties were these asking for even a further extension beyond the 4 hours?
Okay, thank you. Natasha?
Mine is just related to the constitutional court. I know you can't speak on behalf of the apex courts, but when is the IEC expecting an outcome from the constitutional court? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to allow the CEO to deal with the 2 questions from the virtual platform, and then deal with the second 2 from the journalists present here. CEO?
Yes, let's start off with the deadlines that are strenuous. The Commission approached the Concord precisely because it recognizes that there isn't enough time, especially for other role players, such as political parties, to undertake all the activities that they need to undertake to prepare for an election. On its part, and I think we've said this a number of times, the Commission will technically be in a position to prepare an election. In other words, the Commission will be in a position to secure voting stations, to print ballot papers, to train staff, and to provide for all other requisite logistical material. So that we will do. But that does not mean that an election will then meet the constitutional standard of freeness and fairness. But for its part, the Commission will meet its deadline should we not be successful in the Constitutional Court. The issue of the has there been any further extension? Look, last night, towards 2100 hours, there was a flurry of activity with most parties indicating that they need more time. They've not had a time to work the system and so on and so on. That's the reality. Indeed, in that context, we received many requests for a further extension. And regrettably, we are unable to accede to that request. Even as late as this morning, there are further requests formally made to the Commission to consider an additional 2 days at least to allow for corrections to be made to lists and for supplementation to happen and so on. So the Commission will look at that and make a call. But if the election date of the 27th is to be realized, then the scope for the Commission to play around is quite limited. When do we expect the Concord to issue judgment? In our papers, we had requested the Concord to look at a time not beyond the 31st of August. We obviously can't impose to them, and they'll deal with the matter, and the acting Chief Justice did indicate that they will not take any day longer than is necessary in delivering that judgment. So we are hopeful that in the not too distant future, the outcome will be availed. Which parties are contesting all municipalities in the country? Let me first say the following, that in terms of the election timetable, the final list of candidates will be issued, will be certified and issued on the 7th of September. So at that point, the Commission will be in a position to disclose formally who the contestants are by way of party as well as by way of candidates. So I think it would be premature, therefore, of us at this point to give an indication of which two parties will be contesting all municipalities in the country.
Thank you very much. DCO, you've got further questions from your side?
Yes, quite a few. The first
Okay.
one, CEO, please explain the qualification on the criminal record or disqualification on the basis of a criminal record. The second one, if you are successful at the Constitutional Court, will you restart the process? And in that, will you allow political parties to amend their party list and their submissions? The next question is, if not successful at the Constitutional Court, will you allow voter registration before the 27th October? The last one, there was a report on the IEC not having funds for PPE. What is the situation with that? Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Maud.
much. And close the screen for me. Thank you very much. Whilst the CEO is taking questions, answering questions, can we please close the dialogue screen, please? Thank you very much. Thank you, DCO.
Shall we go?
Yes, Ntate, please.
All right. The criminal record, it's a constitutional qualification to hold a seat in council. And it provides that no person who's been convicted to a term of imprisonment for more than 24 months without an option of a fine may hold a seat in council. So it's not necessarily related to candidature, but it's related to ability to hold a seat in council. Of course, the two have a relationship, but I think we need to distinguish that nuance. So if you are convicted to more than 24 months prison or a term of imprisonment without an option of a fine, then you may not hold a seat in a municipal council. And where you've served the term, 5 years ought to have passed before you may hold a seat. If we are successful in the Concord, indeed, we will have to republish a new election timetable. And in terms of that election timetable, there would have to be a new candidate nomination closing date, together with other processes that underget the election timetable. Will there be a registration weekend before the 27th of October? It is not possible to have a registration weekend before the 27th of October. If we have to proceed on the 27th, then it will be on the basis of the voters' roll as it stood on the 3rd of August when the minister proclaimed the election date. Funds for PPE. We indicated that we are not funded for PPE for the election, but we are funded for PPE for the registration weekend. And in fact, I can confirm that that PPE is on hand. It's within our warehousing facility for the registration weekend. In respect of PPE for the elections, I can confirm that we have made a submission to National Treasury in terms of the the adjustment appropriation budget, and we are awaiting consideration thereof by the relevant officers at Treasury.
Thank you so much, CEO. Looks like we've covered all the questions, both for journalists who are in the house with us, as well as journalists who are online. Thank you once more for joining us as the elections calendar proceeds. Then we'll keep on updating the nation. On behalf of the Electoral Commission, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Press briefing has been adjourned.
Right, the Independent Electoral Commission there indicating that there are some 944 independent candidates that have been put forward, and it also indicates that it's received 7 million rand in terms of election deposits. Of course, they're waiting for that decision from the Constitutional Court as to whether indeed the elections can be postponed, and they do say that if indeed that wish is granted, then they will have to relaunch the new candidate list, and parties would then have to resubmit and so on. We are going to go for a quick break and we'll have more news for you thereafter.